Hey, this is Joe Sanfilippo. You're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
You've just jumped inside the pull bag. Join TFG1Mike and the rest of the comic reading crew here at the GCRN as they make their great escape into comics. From DC, Marvel, IDW, Boom Studios, Zenoscope, and more, we have everything you want to read right here. Transformers comics? Yeah, we cover that. He-Man? Yeah, sure. DC superheroes like Batman, Batgirl, Nightwing, and Batman Beyond? Yep. We have those too. How about TMNT from IDW and I Hate Fairyland from Image Comics? Yeah, we have all that here. Plus, so much more. It's all inside the pull bag here on the Geekcast Radio Network. So without any further ado, it's time to talk about the comics we are reading right now here inside the pull bag.
Holy sidewalls! It's Shaggy and Scooby. Like High Crusaders, I've been guarding the yard.
Yeah, me too.
Good work, troops. Who's in the lab?
Professor Flanky and the kids. The bad guys went in the factory. To sneak up a rear staircase, no doubt.
An excellent deduction, Robin. Shaggy, you and Scooby stand there in the shadow of the building and guard the vehicles.
Where do we go, Batman? The factory or the lab?
The lab. We'll enter through the skylight. When Joker and Penguin break in to steal the invention...
I get it. Like I said before, we'll be the reception committee.
Right. To the welcome wagon.
Hello and welcome to the Pull Bag. This is episode 391. We are 9 episodes away from the 400th episode of this podcast, which will be coming up in March of 2021. I'm, of course, TFG1Mike. Joining me this time around is JT from Saskatoon. Hello, sir.
Zoink, Scoob.
Yeah, Casey Kasem, you are not.
Nor would I ever try to be.
Matthew Lillard, you are not. And as you can tell by JT's enthusiasm, we are going to be talking about a series we actually already talked about the first 2 issues way back when. I think it was in episode 54 or 154, something or other. Steve Megatron and I tackled the first 2 issues of this series a couple years ago here inside the Pull Bag. That episode will be in the show notes. But we are talking about Scooby Doo Team Up from DC Comics. We're talking about the first 2 volumes of this series. This series was done way back when in 2013. And I remember when this first came out, I was like, ooh, this is kind of cool. And I eventually fell off of it because it was a digital series coming out every 2 weeks. And I'm like, even though these books at the time were 99 cents a piece, I'm like, I can't keep up with everything they're doing. And then, earlier this year, late last year, I forget, I think it was you or it might have been Dodd or some, I don't know, somebody said, all of the Scooby Doo Team Up trades are free on Comixology. And I'm like, what? And I instantly went and I got them all because I'm like, yeah, you can't pass up free comics.
No, that's just impossible.
Exactly.
No, I did read this series for a time in the beginning, but life and mostly money didn't exactly meet the demand. But I love this series because this is a shout out. I mean, it's directly inspired from, you could even call it a spin-off of the new Scooby Doo movies.
Yep.
From way back in the day. And that's something I love. Like, when you get into the first story, Man, Bat, and Robin from like the very first issue.
Yep.
And they directly reference we used to meet a lot of musicians and basketball players a lot.
Yeah, they reference a lot of stuff. Before we get too far into it, I do want to give the creative team shout-outs as always. I'm wondering where... I know where Dario Brizuela is. At least I found him on Twitter. But Sholy Fish, I don't think he's on Twitter anymore. He's the writer on this. Dario Brizuela is the artist. Franco Rizzico is in Heroic Age of the colorists. So yeah, absolutely dig what they're doing. And I love how Sholy writes this, where it's basically in your face, like, hey, remember when this happened? Well, this is going to happen now. This is so fun, and I'm glad I waited this long Not just because they were free on Comixology at the time, but I'm glad I waited this long to be able to go back and look at this series as a whole, because reading them in single issues was just... I just can't do single issue reading anymore. I need the whole story.
Sometimes you want to pick your food, and sometimes you want to go to the buffet, so...
Yep, absolutely.
So, yeah, like I said, we get into the first story in the first trade where Mr. Ink's in Gotham looking for this giant bat creature. I mean, maybe it's just been a fact of the fact that I'm an angry old man now, but where Freddy says, well, there's no bat creature. You walk 10 feet from the Mystery Machine, asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
And then all of a sudden Batman and Robin show up, and, the one thing that, Sholey, when writing this comic, he gets all the characterizations down, although in later, especially in the second trade that we'll talk about, it just seems to, overemphasize Shaggy and Scooby's cowardice.
Yeah.
There's later on, I think it's the issue where they team up with Johnny Quest and his gang, and he's like, well, why can't it be the island of the fluffy marshmallows? In second thought, marshmallows scare me too. I was like, pussy. I'm sorry. Just, there are certain things I will accept. I expect a certain level of cowardice from the stoner and his lovable canine companion.
Yeah.
But I do like how Brazilla takes care, when we meet Man-Bat, who turns out to be the villain in this first issue, a lot of care is drawn to, Man-Bat looks like, the Bruce Timm style art from TAS. And then you have, the requisite guys who are like, well, there's this bat creature who's scaring Gotham. We're just going to wear masks and rob a mall. And I was like, well, as far as criminals taking advantage of a situation, that really is kind of genius, because, take advantage of the situation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Man-Bat and Kirk Langstrom, who is Man-Bat, he does very much resemble TAS stuff, but the whole time I'm reading this, I'm either hearing, and I know TV's Mr. Neal is going to scream when he hears me say this, but it's because I don't remember, and probably you remember, and I'm not looking. I misremembered this. I always thought it was Adam West in the cartoons.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
It's somebody else, but I love the voice that they did, because it was sort of akin to Adam West, but they also got Casey Kasem as Robin. And throughout this at least this first volume, I hear nothing but Casey Kasem coming out of Robin.
Well, yeah, I heard those voices in my head for reading these issues where Batman shows up.
Yep.
And I'm just looking at the wiki here, see if I can find Batman quick.
The thing about these is we don't have, I love the coloring. I love how simple the art is for the backgrounds and how explosive the characters are. You do good background work and everything else, and you make sure it fits with what's going on in the scene, but at the same time, the characters pop off the page, like when Scooby and Batman are teaming up, or when you're just having Batman and Shaggy have a little conversation kind of a thing, or even when Scooby is trying to scare Shaggy at the end here with putting on the Man-Bat mask.
So I just looked at it. That's Alan Soule's voice that we're hearing from
Yes.
He was Batman from, according to the wiki here, 1968 to 1983, before he sadly passed away about 10 years later in 94.
Right.
But yeah, it has that very... When you hear Alan Soule's Batman, you hear a square jaw.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Because, that was Super Friends Batman, the Batman The New Adventures with the talking bat computer from Filmation.
Yep.
And the original Batman, which I prefer that one. It isn't as irritating as later versions of Batmite in television. But yeah, so we had Alan Soule's Batman voice there, and like I said, it's the dialogue would have worked for Adam West.
Yeah,
You know.
at first I thought I heard his voice in my head, but then as I kept reading this, I'm like, no, that's Alan Soule's. That's the cartoon voice of Batman, not live action. The second issue of this first volume features the Scarecrow and Ace the Bat Hound. I think this is super cool that you have Scooby and Ace teaming up, and you have this whole thing that Sholey does where it's like translated from barking. Like, oh, that's good because, talking dogs are only in the future, which we'll get to later.
Yeah, no, and that's a recurring thing throughout these volumes where, he runs into, I forget who else. Oh, right. Like later on in the beginning of the second volume, Mr. Ink is brought back in time by a Dr. Einstone. So it meets like Fred and Wilma, and when talking to Dino, who more than likely is a distant ancestor of Scooby's bloodline. I'm just putting that out there. Dino is like, indubitably, oh chap, these humans are quite silly in their ways. And I was like, that makes entirely too much sense that Dino would have like this cultured, refined quality to his voice. My favorite thing of the second issue in the second story where Mr. Ink is at the Mystery Analysts of Gotham convention, and it is a smorgasbord. Like, if you're a guy like me who grew up reading his dad's old like Batman, Spider-Man, and all that, I'm familiar with a lot of these characters. There was this huge glut in the spy-fi era of the 1960s. There's a lot of spy characters in DC Comics and a lot of private investigator types. So you have who are also actual characters like K-Day, Misto the Magician. But then you get the last four. Slam Bradley is a character from greater DC continuity, but I know him more from the early aughts Catwoman title that I believe... what's his name? His art... the guy that's art style did the DC The New Frontier. My mind escapes my mind right now.
Darwin Cook?
That's the word, thank you. Darwin Cook, but the three of them, like Dr. 13, Jason Bard, Johnny Double. Dr. 13 was probably my favorite because he was a skeptic. He was the anti-Fox Mulder. And like he's also like the Velma of DC Comics, where like this isn't real, but like consistently he would be running into actual ghosts and vampires and the such. So much so that years later in the comics they created a girl named Tracy 13 who's his daughter, who is an actual sorceress, and her dad just can't even handle it. But yeah, you got the Scarecrow causing muck. I love the fact that it's the... I always kind of like the bubblegum version, like the original Scarecrow head, where it just kind of looks like a partially inflated balloon.
Yeah, whereas when they did New Adventures of Batman, they made him more scary and did the redesign.
Well, even before that, when he got the blonde straw, like, shag hair to the character... Like, the very first episode that showed the Scarecrow, he had that weird, bulbous kind of looking, like I said, kind of a partially inflated balloon, and then he pulls it off and his head grows like another 3 inches wide. But yeah, you got that, and yeah, it's Scooby and Scooby and Ace take off, and I always loved that, how DC heroes had pets back in the day.
Yep.
Like Supergirl had Streaky, and Superman has Crypto and such like that. Aquaman had Topo the octopus.
Yep. Which I think all of them make appearances. Not Supergirl's, but, I mean, we got Ace the Bat Hound, we get Crypto later, and I think at some point the octopus shows up.
Yeah, except it's the size of a goddamn kaiju.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, the second issue was fun. It was cool. It was a little cheesy, but that's the point. It's Scooby Doo and other people, so it's it's always going to have its tropes, and it's not really going to go against type, which is a good thing. Honestly, I need to see a Scooby Bat Ace and Crypto issue or something where all three of them team up, or Super Dogs Unite where all the Super Dogs team up or something or other.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That would take us completely across the street to the Merry Marvel Marching Society. I'll tell you later.
We get to the third issue in Volume 1, and it's all about Paul Reubens. That's right, Pee Wee Herman is Batmite.
And then came its greatest episode, Chill of the Night. It was dark and brooding, but it reminded us of how much we missed the serious Batman. We longed for more episodes like that. Instead, we got more like this. You were great in your day, Campy Crusader, but now you've... Oh, what's that expression again? That's it! You've jumped the shark! That moment when a once great show starts going downhill.
Give him a taste of your bat shark repellent, old chum.
I want a new, more dramatic Batman show.
You all right over there?
Don't get me wrong. I am nothing. I have been a lifelong fan of that tequila dancing, bike riding rebel that is Pee Wee Herman. It's just when he does that voice for Batmite, it's not nails on a chalkboard. It just makes me deeply uncomfortable. I don't know why.
The funny thing is, his is the only one I can hear when I read this. I don't hear any other voice for Batmite. And you and I did the Batmite 6-issue miniseries back in the day for 122 and 123. Oh, God, that was 4 years ago.
Dear God, we're old.
Yes, we are.
And, oh, wow. Just as I casually glance at the wiki here, I noticed Alan Soul also voiced Dr. Stein in the Super Friends cartoon as the one half of Firestorm. That's awesome. Yeah, cool. I'm just looking up the Batmite voice here quick. The overall issue of Batmite showing up, and then you got this Scooby-Mite, and it just looks... He doesn't seem like an extra-dimensional imp of incredible cosmic power. He looks like somebody's toddler in a puppy costume.
That's true, but again, Batmite comes from superheroes. Batmite comes from, the superhero age. A Scooby superfan imp from the fifth dimension would look more like what the Scooby Gang looks like, and the reason why I love this issue a little bit more than some of the other ones here in Volume 1 is because even though Batmite always causes mischief, we get a pup named Scooby Doo reference. How can you not love that?
That was fun. I smiled so hard when I saw that.
Yeah.
Except that was the entirely wrong design for a pup named Scooby Doo. Scooby.
True, very true. He kind of looks more like...
He looks like pure evil.
My favorite, Scrappy Doo. A little bit, but you know what? It is what it is. I think what they were trying to do here was basically just youngify the designs they already had of the classic characters and not really make a full-on... Even though Shaggy calls it out as a pup named Scooby-Doo, but it's not like the full-on design because it would be a little different. And that's not a bad thing. I just like that they put it in the writing. The art doesn't, it matters, but it doesn't really. It's 1 second of the rest of this Batmite issue where you have all this other stuff going on. And like you said, Scooby-Mite shows up and just, makes Scooby the superhero and gives him superpowers, and he crashes through walls, and
it's like, no, he meant to do that the whole time. And that was the late great Lou Scheimer was Batmite in the New Adventures of Batman.
That's right, he was.
It's been so long since I watched that series. And then you also think of when I think of Batmite's voice, it either goes to New Adventures or the Deep Freeze episode of TAS where he was voiced by Pat Fraley.
Oh, I forgot about that. I have to watch that one again.
Yeah.
I think the only reason I don't care, I've admitted this before, I've only watched certain episodes of Batman Brave and the Bold. I've watched the Kevin Conroy guest appearance, and I've watched the Batmite episodes. And that's the only reason why I know Pee Wee Herman was Batmite, is because I watched those episodes, and I just love what he did in those.
Yes, well, first of all, Oswald does a very good job voicing Batman. He voices Batman in the manner that is consistent with the characterization of the 1960s Brave and the Bold team-up title that Batman ran till the very early 80s.
I said nothing about Dietrich
Dude,
Bader.
you used to, anytime anybody back in the day,
right,
anytime
exactly.
you mentioned Brave and the Bold, you'd be like, fucking Oswald.
Well, yeah, because that's who it is. It's fucking Oswald. But here's the thing. I've only seen the first episode of the Harley Quinn animated series during my HBO Max free trial that I had. And I'm like, hey, it's fucking Oswald. It's a dark Batman. I can get behind this, but this fruity, happy, Brave and the Bold Batman, I just can't. That's not my era.
It's not really fruity happy. That's 1960s comic Batman. Moving on. My favorite moment in the Batmite, Scooby Mite story here is where this goofy stuff is happening early in the story, and Batman's like, wait a second, goofy antics, weird shit happening. All right, get your little ass out here.
Yeah. Yep. And I love Batmite's reaction to Scooby Mite.
Yeah, and then they bring in my, like right at the end, they bring in my least favorite character from the Teen Titans animated series, Larry.
Yeah,
the Robin obsessed imp from the Fifth. It's like, is the Fifth Dimension just filled with fanboys who don't know how much power they have? Oh my God, the Fifth Dimension is the internet.
Yep, it is. Which, what I find interesting and cool, and I'll mention this as we go along through the rest of Volume 1 and into Volume 2, there's a strange bit of continuity connection between all of these. Well, most of them, at least starting here at Batmite, because at the end you have Larry. Mm-hmm. And then the very next issue is Scooby Doo teams up with Teen Titans.
And I love it. It's Teen Titans Go Teen Titans, but they even make that reference. It's like, wow, Robin just doesn't seem the same as he did like when we saw him last week. Well, he's not around adults now, you know. And I love how that works for a kid's cartoon. That is all the explanation you need. And they go to TTG Titans, and they're like, the tower is being haunted, except it's not, because Beast Boy and Cyborg are assholes.
Yes, they are.
It's my favorite part of that series is the complete randomness. Like, no, we're just gonna say waffles all episode, and somehow that defeats Brother Blood, and then we meet. They think it's Trigon the Terrible, but no, it's Raven's Uncle Myron the mildly irritating.
And I have not watched Teen Titans Go. I have zero interest. I don't dislike it. I don't like it. I just don't care. Okay, so this is kind of my first interaction with them, even though I've seen like commercials and stuff for their stuff. I wasn't really a fan of the adult, I guess you could say the more adult version of Teen Titans either. But here's the thing. They could have come up with something better than a Hell Dimension real estate agent, or whatever he ended up being.
Being a fan of the Teen Titans Go animated series, that's the kind of scattershot, goofy humor that a lot of fans love about it. I mean, primarily, it's 10-episode or 10-minute episodes, very much in the vein of something like Steven Universe or Adventure Time sort of thing. It's made mainly for kids, but there's a lot of in-jokes and background design and everything. There's a lot there for adult fans of the Teen Titans comics. And I would recommend people check the series out. I would even recommend you check it out, Mike. It's just, you're not going to love every episode. Like when a friend of mine asked me, what would you recommend? My first episode is Burger versus Burrito. Beast Boy and Cyborg get into an argument of what's the better food, burgers or burritos, and it culminates in a giant kaiju versus mech battle outside the tower.
You just put the burger inside the burrito and argument over.
You shut your whore mouth. But yeah, so Myron, and I love this, Myron the mildly irritating is essentially Uncle Eddie. Like, he turns into the most, like, passive-aggressively obnoxious version of Randy Quaid's character from the Vacation movies.
Yeah.
And eventually they trick him and he fleds back to, I forget what the dimension that he and Trigon come from is, but yeah, they leave, and then he's like, I'll try my luck in the fifth dimension. It's like, good luck. Honestly, I'm a little insulted in that last story that Mr. Mixia's Spitlick didn't turn up. And if he did, like, it doesn't matter if they didn't use the Superman TAS design, I'm going to hear Gilbert Gottfried's voice. Oh,
absolutely. It's the only voice that matters when it comes to Mrs. Spitlick. And I believe this is the last issue in this, or second to last one. We get Scooby Doo meets Wonder Woman.
They made some of the leaps in logic, like the whole thrust of the story, folks, is Daphne and Velma are on Themyscira training with Wonder Woman and the Amazons, and then Fred, Shaggy, and Scoob are hanging out in the Invisible Jet, because this is from a time of, and this is from the Silver Age into the early Bronze Age, where if a man set foot on Themyscira, then all the Amazons would lose their powers, like their enhanced strength and speed and all that. So there's this one thing where, at one point, where the villains, turns out the Duke of Deception, who's like almost forgotten Wonder Woman villain from back in the day.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, and this is the guy, he's got he's like Mastermind from X-Men. He can just make you see things. And Fred and Shaggy are gonna get out of the jet, and then Shaggy's like, wait, we can't touch Fred's like, we can't touch the ground, the Amazons will lose their powers. So they send out Scooby, because, well, he might be a male, he's a male dog. And
he's a dog, he's not human.
Yeah.
He's not a person.
And then Shaggy, figuratively speaking, slips on a banana peel and falls out of the jet towards the end of the story and lands on the Duke, and they're like, oh no, all the Amazons have lost their powers. And then the Duke gets up and he's like, and he's like, wait a second, why is Wonder Woman wailing on me like a rented mule? Well, because Shaggy landed on his ass and his feet never actually touched. It's very literal.
Yeah,
and that's how literal the rules were with comic book. What's the word I'm looking for? The rules were back then. You have to touch the ruby on the night of the full moon while singing a song. Well, you sang a song on the night of the full moon, but you weren't touching the ruby. Yeah. That sort of thing. And honestly, with Wonder Woman here, I didn't hear the Wonder Woman from the Super Friends and what's the name of the Susan from Justice League?
Susan Eisenberg.
Thank you. I heard 1970s TV Wonder Woman.
It's absolutely Linda Carter in this. Yeah.
God, why can I not remember names today? But yeah, no, I heard her, and I also love how they're Brazilla draws Wonder Woman to look like that big bouncy bucket of hair that Super Friends Wonder Woman had. Mm-hmm. Like that perfect half circle with the little two tips coming out from behind her back, and it never flutters in the breeze.
Yeah, absolutely. The final issue in Volume 1 here deals with Scooby meeting up with the Justice League.
The Super Friends.
Whatever, same thing.
Super Friends.
Super Friends. And I'm like, okay, like, I don't not like this, but by this time when I was reading, I'm like, I've had enough of superheroes and Scooby so far. Like, Scooby's great. I love Scooby, and I do love superheroes. But this is one superhero story too many. And very anticlimactic. And there's no Gleek.
Well, there's no actual Wonder Twins, so...
Well, I mean, there is. Well, true. That is... Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I still take offense. I love the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover that the Arrowverse shows did. But you know, if I don't get a crossover where they officially form the Justice League and we don't get Gleek after that tease at the end of the crossover, like, I'm sorry. To hell with you. To hell. And yeah, the Super Friends are being haunted by these multicolored ghosts, which I think is a nod to the emotional spectrum, because it's one for every color of the rainbow, and you know, got the emotional spectrum from the Jeff Johns Green Lantern comics, which is something I love that bit that he came up with, and it turns out to be the Legion of Doom, as if it was going to be anyone else.
Yeah.
You know, and I love how they get taken down. As the main linchpin of that is Velma with that goddamn smile looks at Bizarro. Bizarro, we're enemies, right? Yes. Those are friends, right? Points at the Legion. Yes. You're not going to fight our friends, right? Bizarro, not kick ass.
Yeah, that was funny.
And also, when Scooby and Shaggy are such cowards, their fear is so pure that Sinestro, who is wearing his OG purple and blue union suit from the Silver Age, his ring flies off his finger, splits itself, and grants a ring each to Scooby and Shaggy, and they get like the Sinestro Corps uniforms.
Yeah, that is cool. That's funny.
And Shaggy's like, we scare ourselves silly every day. I was like, yeah, at what point you're going to have a heart attack by the time you're 32, bud? That or his blood pressure is so streamlined and powerful that he'll be immortal. Who knows?
Yeah.
And how did they rescue the Super Friends, Mike?
It's so stupid.
It is classic Silver Age stupidity, sir.
Yes, that's why it's stupid.
This is the bikini shorts, swimming trunks version of Brainiac with his pimp collar shirt and in that subtle pink tone. Who does he shrinks them down and bottles them like they were the city of goddamn Kandor.
Yep. And
then they like rock the jar and fall off the shelf, and then it's like little 4-inch tall, like, imagine if it's Toy Story. Like they're the Super Friends are the size of G.I. Joes, and they're still taking out Lex Luthor.
That's right.
Did I ever mention that this version of Lex Luthor is like my favorite version of Lex Luthor?
Yes, I think you've said so before. If I'm picking a Lex, it's a tie between Clancy Brown voicing him in DCAU and John Shea on Lois and Clark. Hackman's okay, but...
it's good for that's very specific... Like, John Shea and Clancy Brown, you could take their very specific Lexes and put them in any number of other continuities, and they would work just as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, and I don't know if you watch a lot of Arrowverse, but John Cryer's Lex Luthor, just chef's kiss. That never Lenny Luthor who no, he is Lex goddamn Luthor. It goes favorite Luthor's. I mean, it's Clancy Brown, John Cryer, and then Legion of Doom Lex. I mean, John Shea's up there, but it's something about the silliness of the Legion of Doom and Super Friends that I love. But John Cryer's Lex Luthor, like, dear Lord. But yeah, no, I love this. how the first volume they made that effort to, it's a team up, and DC is known for doing these team up titles. I mean, specifically The Brave and the Bold, which featured Batman teaming up with, the Demon or the Spectre or the Sea Devils. There's a deep dive, folks. Go to the Wikipedia. It's your best friend. And the DC Comics Presents, which was Superman teaming up with, He-Man Master of the Universe, which is technically He-Man's first appearance in comic books.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we move into the second volume. We mentioned the Flintstones, which I mentioned earlier. And I heard, I watched Flintstones so much growing up. Growing up, if I was not at school, I was home on a weekday, 11:45, you turn it to Channel 10, there's two, Hanna-Barbera cartoons, like Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, and then Flintstones at noon every day. So, I have the voices, the background sounds, the canned laughter, that I heard that all in this issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Volume 1. Volume 1 was good. I like the writing. I love the art. I just got burnt out on all the superhero stuff after a while. It's good. It's not that it's not good, but because I read it all at once, it's like, okay, let's get to some other crossovers. Where's my, I don't know, folks, because I have never read this series all the way through. So maybe down the line when we cover volumes 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and so on, maybe there are crossovers with this. But what I want is a Scooby Doo Hong Kong Phooey crossover.
Yes.
So we're gonna take a quick break. Before we do that, what would you rate Volume 1, 0 to 5?
Oh, this is 5 Scooby Snacks out of 5.
I'll give it a 4 out of 5 Scooby Snacks. And
that's because you have no joy in your soul.
A 4 out of 5 is not a bad rating, you crazy Canuck. We'll be back after this, folks.
Because the world needs another movie podcast.
The Geekcast Radio Network presents for your listening pleasure the Cinema Geek.
Hosted by Amanda, Kevin, Matt, and Dan.
Each week we dive headfirst in the landscape of movies as we discuss movie news,
play movie games,
go in-depth on reviews,
and even have a top 10 countdown or two.
Also, don't miss our director retrospective series where we review noted directors' movies film by film.
Bottom line is, if you love movies and love podcasts, you need to experience the Cinema Geeks.
You can find us on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, or GeekCastRadio.com.
I'm Thomas DJ, top professional.
I'm Scott McGregor, talented amateur.
And we'd like to invite you to join us for our journey through every adventure of The Avengers.
No, not that Avengers. You won't find any tights, magic hammers, or fancy shields here.
But you will find some supervillains and some hot women in tight leather, so there is that.
And champagne.
Oh, yeah, lots of champagne.
With Umbrella, Charm, and Bowler, that other Avengers podcast, covering the seminal spy series that lasted from 1961 to 1969 on an episode-by-episode basis.
Join us as we explore the television series that helps shape pop culture. I made an icon out of Diana Rigg, Honor Blackman, and Patrick Dean.
With Umbrella, Charm, and Bowler.
That other Avengers podcast, coming straight towards you every month.
Only on the Two True Freaks Podcast Network.
On the Simplistic Reviews podcast, we talk movies. We talk TV. We talk...
Hello, Julie, what the heck are you doing?
Trying to make our spots sound more exciting by adding explosions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have got the point across with sound effects, not the real thing. Car.
Download the show on iTunes or at simplisticreviews.blogspot.com.
I'm sure your insurance company will cover that.
No, they won't.
No, they probably won't.
All right, we are back here inside the Pull Bag, episode 391, Scooby Doo Team Up, volumes 1 and 2. It is time for volume 2. The creative on this, pretty much the same. There's a few additions. Shelley Fish is on writing. Dario Brizella and Scott Geralds are the artists. Franco Riesco and Wendy Broom are the colorists, and there's a bunch of other people that are on the other parts of it that I can't pronounce, and I'm not going to try because I'm not going to screw it up. But this volume 2, as JT was saying earlier, this starts off with the Flintstones and Scooby Doo, and what I mentioned earlier about how the connective tissue is between some of these issues, I love how they did this.
Yeah. And some of the call-outs and little verbal connects and that. But yeah, like I was saying, Professor Einstone and Mr. Eddystone. Dear God, those names.
The only problem I have with that is they call him Tim Eddystone, not Tom Eddystone. I don't know if that was just a misprint on the lettering. Maybe it is supposed to be Tom Eddystone, but it actually does say Tim Eddystone, and I'm like, wait a minute.
I think that's just who knows how the Edison estate is. I'm fairly certain they did that a lot, if I recall correctly, when they had parody type characters of like it's Mayor Fierro LaGuardia Rock or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, so the Professor Einstein's created this time machine, and again, I'm old and bitter. And looking at this time machine, it's like, how in the hell are you going to develop the 1.21 gigawatts of energy to travel through time? Like, but then again, I don't understand how a Stone Age television works either.
True.
But yeah, so the Mystery Inc. is brought back in time, and shenanigans happen where they run into Fred and Barney, and who just happen to be living Dr. Einstone Professor Einstein lives next door to Fred and Barney. Like, that's just how cartoons work, folks. Logic? Who needs stinking logic? And Fred and Barney prove to be pretty amiable and take the kids in and are looking after them while, the professor figures stuff out. And I love how they're walking into the house. It's like, Barney's a good guy, but he keeps trying to steal my cereal.
Yeah. I love that.
Spoiler alert, the Great Gazoo does show up, but he doesn't turn everybody into kids again, because I was scared they were going to do a Flintstone Kids reference. Oh. And
what's funny? I actually like Flintstone Kids.
Well, good night, everybody.
For what it is, look at what they were doing at that time. Everything was turn this into a kids show. I don't know. I kind of.
I don't disagree with that. It's just something about Flintstone Kids. I was like, nope, I don't like that.
They've got 10 million fans and growing.
Good for them.
Come on, seriously.
I don't like the Flintstone Kids.
No. You completely missed the vitamin joke. Never mind. The old Flintstones vitamin ads, 10 million strong.
I remember that. I
growing.
just chose to ignore that, Mike.
You're an ass.
Yeah, well, you're an American. So, one of the things they had in this first story was they have the Phantom of the Opera Rock, and purposely drawn by Gerald and Brazella to look like Fred somewhat. And that's a callback to like how Fred would take a bowling ball to the head, and like how that man doesn't have like permanent CTE.
Yeah.
But I love it's like, come on, Barney, and they go off screen, and so you're led to believe that it's Fred, and we would not be wrong in that normally, but except it turns out to be somebody else, because Fred was going to sneak off. It's like, it's bowling night, Wilma. It's like, you promised we're going to the opera. Get your ass in the car. And then he does. Like the art, you see him throw the bowling ball, but in my head, I heard the twinkle toes, like Flintstone maneuver. Yep. And it turns out to be this rich guy who was like trying to build a mall. So, and I remember in the first volume, they're talking about, or it might have been this one where I forget who the guest star was, but they say something about it's usually some criminal, and then Daphne says, usually we just fight realtors.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. And then that's what this is.
Also, I love, like, just looking at the wiki for this, because I pulled up the Scoobypedia wiki article on the individual issues, just so I could know the character names. I love how they denote it's Fred, and then in parentheses, Flintstone, and Fred in parentheses, Jones.
Yeah.
And if we could look at the writing script for this issue, I imagine they would have done the same thing.
Oh, I'm sure they did, because even in the beginning of this issue, they're like, Fred? What? Not you, Fred. My Fred. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a comedy of errors waiting to happen. So, like I said, they call up the Great Gazoo. It's like, yes, we're from the future. They don't actually specify what time, and they end up on George Jetson's treadmill with Shaggy yelling, "Get us off this crazy thing!"
This is what I was saying earlier that I liked about the connectivity of these, where you start with Scooby going back and being flung back in time to the Flintstones, and then flung forward to the Jetsons. I love, like, I had not ever read this issue before, and I'm like, but I knew that the Jetsons one was coming after the Flintstones one, so I'm like, how are they going to do that? And then obviously we find out here with Great Gazoo, and now we're in the future with the Jetsons. And this really did feel like the Jetsons one, Future Shocked, feels like the Flintstones were already there, but with the exception that they weren't, and that it's the Scooby Gang instead of them. But the whole time I'm reading this Jetsons Scooby issue, I'm like, man, they need a new movie that isn't WrestleMania.
True. I love the wrestling, like WWE Scooby crossover movies. Like, they're just fun. Like the racing car one where, you know, the Miz is going for a jog down the road and he almost gets run over by the villain. He's just like got his headphones. I'm awesome, and because I love the Miz. But yeah, we got Future Shock to this one. They land on the treadmill. The Jetsons are nothing but accommodating. They're like, oh, and I can't help but wonder if that's like a subtle nod to the Jetsons meet the Flintstones.
That's what I think it is too. Yeah.
And then we get, I love how it's like basically Sunday afternoon. Like, even in the future, they respect the Lord's Day of Rest. And
well, everyone does except Mr. Spacely.
Yeah, well, Spacely is Mr. Spacely. This is a hill I will die on. Mr. Spacely is an asshole on par with George Jefferson. You know, he like, dude, I don't care. The only reason you're successful is you've got this fucking paranoid delusion that they're going to use anything other than Spacely sprockets, when it's consistently proven throughout the history of the Jetsons animated series that Cogswell Cogs are substandard at best. At best. If they don't turn to dust right out of the package, you're lucky. But yeah, so, they go in, and I love how Daphne like dresses down Spacely. And I was like, that's why you're my bae. Because no one talks to George, or no one puts George in a corner.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that this serving robot that the Jetsons have, like, oh, speaking of the serving robot, you know that scene where the Jane shows Scooby and Shaggy the kitchen? You know, I'm pretty sure they ate them out of house and dehydrated food pills.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Also, how does Shaggy not have diabetes?
You know, I think we've talked about this before. It might not have been you and I, but I know I've talked about this. Shaggy, first of all, Shaggy and Scooby never age. So they're, let's just say, mid to late teens, early 20s, okay? But let's just, for argument's sake, let's say Shaggy is 15, 16-year-old, whatever. He's a scaredy cat. He's always running from everything. He gets enough exercise where he needs more food, and he gorges out on food. And we've got some cartoons that do show him and Scooby with big giant bellies, but then they go running because they're running for their lives. So that's...
so I'll accept that, but Scooby should be dead, because I was recently watching like the original Scooby-Doo Where Are You? And in the first episode, he eats one of Shaggy's, 6-foot tall sandwiches that one of the main ingredients is chocolate syrup.
Yeah, no, and I agree. There are certain things with Scooby's logic that are kind of flawed because you're not supposed to give chocolate to dogs, and honestly, dogs should not have any table scraps at all. But it's one of those things where, you know, it's cartoon logic, it's this logic, it's that logic, because they're trying to have the dog character be, you know, the best friend to the kid that's watching the thing. And if you're best friends with your dog, obviously you're going to try to feed him chocolate, even though you shouldn't.
Yeah. And yeah, it turns out, like I said, the serving robot had wires crossed and tries to do away with everybody, and then literally George trips backwards into... They find somehow the time machine that is in no way capable of generating 1.21 gigawatts is survived to the future, and it sends them back to the exact moment. And the whole gag is between these two issues is when they come in and when they get back, they're about to reveal, you know, the goofy ghost of, you know, whatever is, and then they cut to see it. It was like, you gotta tell me.
Nope, you don't get to know.
The grumpy ghost of Grizzly Grotto.
Yep. And then the next issue, we go back to Superman and the Daily Planet. This time we have, you know, Great Caesar's Ghost Perry with Jimmy Olsen and Lois and
Crypto.
This is where Crypto and Scooby team up, which I liked that part about it. The rest of it, not so much. The prankster was never one of... The only time the prankster was any good to me was when it was, Oh no, that was Mixie. Never mind. I was gonna say when Howie Mandel starred as him on Lois and Clark, but he was
Mixie. Yeah, I mean, they had this weird thing, you know, again, the prankster and, I forget, there was another trickster type character that Batman or Superman had, where he had like 2 or 3 of these guys who, they're not a physical threat, they're not even like a mental threat, they're just annoying as fuck. Basically, the prankster is Logan Paul.
Yeah.
He in this like ugly green jacket and like, you know, radioactive itching powder and such like that, and through the shenanigans of it, Superman is exposed to one of my favorite of many favorite Silver Age elements, the red kryptonite, which you know, has this wacky random mutating effect on Superman. So he basically turns into like a super caveman beast, whatever, and he's going on a rampage. And Jimmy Olsen goes and gets like the super serums that him and Lois would occasionally drink in the Silver Age, where, you know, Lois would get superpowers and Jimmy would become Elastalad, except Shaggy and Scooby drink the serums instead. No, if there are two characters in the history of animation that should not be given superpowers, I'm sorry, I love you boys, but no. And it's a comedy of errors, but they managed to slow down Superman, and then Velma and Jimmy use a red sun ray to, you know, remove his powers to the point that the red kryptonite is negated, and you know, the prankster is captured. This is, I'm going to be honest right here, this was not my favorite. This was probably my least favorite story in these two trades.
Yeah.
It's just, there's stuff here I love, like the Silver Age references, and that's a lot of them I love for a lot of the series thus far. But yeah, this one, not so hot.
Yeah, no. Prankster captured by Superman and his meddling kids by Lois Lane is probably my favorite part of this issue.
Yeah. Or the one where they did, with the Legion of Doom, was like, you meddling young adults.
Yeah, yeah. Again,
or no, wait, that's the next story I was thinking of. Never mind.
it's not that I dislike this series. It's not that I dislike the superheroes or the Scooby Gang. I just think it could have been spread out a little bit more than what it was. Like, in Volume 1, you could, like I said, Hong Kong Phooey, hell, even, Birdman, or Blue Falcon, or something. Like,
didn't they do, like, there's, like, an animated Blue Falcon Scooby movie, and then there's the one where Marky Mark voices Blue Falcon.
Yep. The next issue features Scooby teaming up with that racist idiot, Race Bannon. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Johnny Quest meets Scooby Doo.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't make... Because of all the things that Velma questions, she doesn't question, like, the somewhat racist character that is Haji.
Yeah.
Instead, she questions the rope. It's like, you never question the rope, Velma. The rope saved your life. But yeah, the Mr. Inc. is called to investigate the purported curse of this ruby at a museum, and they literally run into Team Quest. And right away, Race is like, well, you kids should just take our kids and get the hell out of here. We got man work to do. And, of course, the villain is Dr. Zinn.
Of course.
Somehow not as racist as one would imagine Asiatic villains being at that time. Mm-hmm. The era that they're created in. But I love how, like, you hear the stilted line reading, and you can practically see the somewhat limited animation.
Oh yeah. And honestly, while I will always love cartoons, there are some cartoons I cannot go back and watch because of the animation style and the whatever. And honestly, Johnny Quest is one of them, because it just looks so, and I know it is because it is so old, but seeing it here, it's like, oh, this is what I remember. This is really fun. This is really cool.
Yeah. I still enjoy watching Johnny Quest, now and again, but I can see how some people don't want to go back to that style, and I mean, that's fine. I do like the straight up Questisms here, like Dr. Quest is captured by Dr. Zinn again, and he comes up with blinking tracker with his eyes, and Race picks up on that. And then they go to, the Isla de los Monstros, the Island of Monsters, and this goes back to that, Shaggy makes that reference. It's like, why couldn't it be the Island of Fluffy Marshmallows? On second thought, marshmallows scare me. Pussy!
I don't understand why marshmallows scare Shaggy, because he eats everything. That's the thing, like, he's always eating something.
Shaggy doesn't have a brain in his head, he just has another stomach.
That's true.
Yeah. So they go to the Island of Monsters. In typical fashion, their boat is taken down by a giant mechanical octopus, because that's how one does with the Johnny Quest series. Mm-hmm. And then they're chased by these slowly crawling, hissing crocodiles who look like they have cobra lizard tongues. And they get into Dr. Zinn's hideout and put foot to ass and escape. And they even make mention, this is our finishing move, and it's the Quest jet flying away from an island that's exploding.
Of course it is.
And I just love, like I said, like Velma questioning, Haji takes off his turban and goes, Sim Sim Salabim, and the rope, it's the thing, and I never realized this until just now. What is that rope attached to? Because it's like the 1960s Spider-Man cartoon. He always shoots the web off screen, but you don't always see it make contact with something.
Yeah.
It's just, and I realize I'm arguing for physics in cartoons here, and I'm just going to move along.
Yeah, I like the Quest issue. I do think it's fun. I think it's interesting. And I will say right now, before anybody writes in and corrects me, because I'm actually looking forward ahead when we get to Volume 3 and 4 next time, or in episode 393 of the show, we do get a all-dog Go to Scooby episode. And luckily none of them go to heaven, I don't think. But we do get an issue, a story, where it's all the dogs. Because I just saw a cover where it's Scooby, Ace, Crypto, Dino Mutt, and one of the Green Lanterns. I don't know which one.
Probably Nort.
Probably. We'll find out next January in 2021.
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
I was just saying, I know I said earlier that Superman one wasn't my least favorite. I need to
revise that.
Not revise so much as make space on that particular shelf and put this second last issue story right there next to it. I have seen a sum total of... It's Mystery Inc. teaming up with Secret Squirrel. I have seen a sum total of 4 Secret Squirrel cartoons in my life. And as much as I love Hanna-Barbera cartoons, I do not like Secret Squirrel.
Really? I love Secret Squirrel.
I don't know. Maybe it's something of the same reason why you don't like Johnny Quest. You know, it's just...
Yeah.
It's not bad. It does nothing for me. But yeah, so Mystery Inc. goes to this international conference between the I love this, the leaders of Slabovia and Wildechea.
Yeah.
Or Wildechea. And the ghost of King Leopold shows up, so, you know, international sneaky service.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so Secret Squirrel and Morocco Mole. And I don't know why I don't like Secret Squirrel. I just keep him back. I mean, I love Danger Mouse.
Yeah, see, I always like Danger Mouse and Secret Squirrel. I like them together, not together because they've never been together, but like I like them each individually, kind of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I love when they first meet Secret Squirrel in Double Q's office, and they're like, "Well, we weren't expecting a talking squirrel wearing a trench coat. You have a talking dog." Touché.
Yeah.
And they go through, and I love how they get trapped in the requisite. The walls are closing in with like it almost looks like soft yellow Nerf spikes.
Mm-hmm.
And Secret Squirrel, like, you know, opens his hat, and all these mice come out of a box of something and chew through the wall. And I'm just like, huh?
It's cartoon logic.
I know. I'm arguing against cartoon logic, and I love watching cartoons. You're tearing me apart, Lisa. And they escape, and they unmask the ghost of King Leopold, who is the Yellow Pinky.
Yeah, it's always the Yellow Pinky.
I mean, and again, I don't know a lot about Secret Squirrel, but is that like a reference to like the Scarlet Pimpernel or something?
It might be, but the Yellow Pinky has always been his arch nemesis as far as I can remember. I have not seen Secret Squirrel in a long time. I just remember some of the main characters and tropes that go along with it. But I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was fun because I thought it was... Yes, it does have tropes. Yes, it does have certain cartoon logic that people want to argue with, but it's Scooby and another cartoon team up versus, you know, not necessarily Scooby and another superhero team up kind of thing for me. So that's why I love this one, is because it's so refreshing, because it's different characters and not just, hey, what adventure can we go on Batman this week with?
Yeah. And again, cartoon logic, I get that, but Morocco Mole wears like this little tiny fez that he pulls it off and a giant hot air balloon pops out. And I was like, oh god, is that going to expand? They're all going to be sitting in the hat? No, they're just all hanging off the sides of this tiny ass piece of felt.
Mm-hmm.
Next issue.
Next issue, final issue for Volume 2 is Scooby and the gang meet Harley, Ivy, and the rest of the Gotham City villainesses.
Gotham City Sirens.
Whatever, same thing.
And
go ahead.
I love this one. Like, I'm straight up. I have nothing but love for this.
Yeah, this is amazing. This is awesome. This is cool.
Because who voiced Catwoman originally in TS? I know her face from the John Carpenter movies. Like she was Adrienne Barbeau.
Adrienne Barbeau.
I did it on my own.
Yay!
Yeah, Adrienne Barbeau. Like, I heard her voice coming out because it's the original gray and black suited Catwoman.
Yeah, it's the original gray and black suit Catwoman, and it's not necessarily the original Harley and Ivy from BTAS. It's more the original Ivy, or more the original Harley. But she does have the hammer, so there's that. But yeah, it's very...
Well, I heard Arlene Sorkin and...
absolutely, yeah.
Who voiced Ivy?
Diane Pershing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right here. Just found that on the wiki. Couldn't remember. But yeah, like, I heard that. Like, I always like... And just quick aside, I always like Poison Ivy where she was a nutty... plant-themed eco-terrorist. Like, once they made her, and again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with her being a woman with superpowers. I just want to preface that. I just like the original Poison Ivy with her, little wrist crossbow, and she's a nutty, scientist who's trying to save the world from man.
Right, yeah.
Versus... I'm going to kill all the meat things, and she's only 3 steps shy from being Uma Thurman in Batman and Robin. Even though I love that version of Poison Ivy as well. So, what do I know? But yeah, the Mystery Inc. gang confronted by Poison, like Ivy and Harley, and they try to run away, like specifically Shaggy and Scoob. Who I forgot to mention the Johnny Quest issue. Like the entire reason they catch Dr. Zinn is he tried to escape through one of his secret entrances, and then Shaggy's his spidey sense goes off. Scoob, a way out, and just blah, and just run the man right over. And they try to do that here, except they're stopped, and Harley and Ivy are being haunted, and Harley thinks it's not sure if it's a ghost, but she suspects it's just a gag by the Joker.
Right, yeah.
And they've got this... They eventually they come to that, but at first they think they're literally being cursed because they stole the opal of Osiris. And I love how she mentions those water sprinklers, the guards showing up, conga lines.
Yeah, this is very TAS, and it is very funny. It's very good.
And I love how the gang... immediately thinks that once they figure, okay, they're just being punked, well, it's got to be Batman. Oh, Harley thinks it's the Joker. And then they pull off, they meet one of the ghosts, and you'd think the gang is like, doesn't this look like that ghost from the time? but the way I see it like this is Mystery Inc. like don't change through the first 2 volumes. They're still the same.
Yeah.
But we've clearly gone from one era of DC animation into another. Now, at this point, are they going to make reference in a future issue? Are they going to team up with Batman and reference the time with the Super Friends and Batman is like the Who?
Yeah.
Because the ghost looks just like from the issue where they teamed up with the Super Friends to fight the Legion of Doom.
Yeah.
And then it turns out to be first is Catwoman, who tries to seal it, and then Velma is like, the opal of Osiris is also referred to as the cat's eye opal. And Harley's like, oh, I'm a smacker now.
Yeah.
And then Batgirl show up as in another cloak, and they have that whole thing where the one thing that brings any joy to Velma's heart is the whole scene where she sits there and lectures people about how she figured out what was going on, because she points out that, well, the first ghost had black gloves and the second ghost had yellow gloves, and both times that allowed me to deduce who it really was. And you could see Daphne just probably glaring daggers like, you're not the only one with brains in this outfit, sister.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, and the villains are all captured, the opal is retrieved. I love Harley. Batgirl, like, she takes them all out in pretty short order, but Harley gets taken out with her own hammer.
Yeah, well, Harley's always going to get taken out by her own hammer. I mean, that's just
the
way.
Modern Harley.
Well, okay, but this isn't modern Harley. This is BTAS Harley. So
the best Harley.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I just love that. Like, you hear the requisite cartoon sound effect of getting hit and the twitting birds and all that, and all's well that ends well.
Yep.
And I said the only negative thing that I would say about this story is you have Brazella back on doing all the art here instead of probably doing like layouts from some of the previous issues. But he draws the ghouls to look exactly like the ghouls from the Super Friends issue, and they don't mention that. And just that's a nitpicky fanboy gripe. It's not a negative black mark. It's just, say it's the thing that I know it to be.
Yeah, exactly.
The tape grows on my glasses. Actually.
Yeah. I love this. I love this series so far. Like I said, I did get a little burnt out with all the superhero stuff. With all this, it's not the same superhero stuff, but it's like the same characters. Like the Wonder Woman one was kind of cool. I thought that was interesting, but using okay, they went to the future with the Jetsons. How about you go to the future with a different Batman, a teenage Batman? That would have been cool. But overall,
are they still publishing Team Up?
No, it's done.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe down the line they did a Beyond.
Yeah, I don't know. No clue. Yeah, but no, Team Up has been done for a while, I think. They've gone on to Apocalypse and other things.
Yeah. Well, I'm just and I'm looking ahead to the next trade here. Like the first story in the next trade is another one of the, like we had the mystery analysts of Gotham. The next one is like got a whole bunch of guest stars from the spooky, the early '70s spooky era of DC. Like around the time they relaxed the Comics Code, so you got Phantom Stranger, Dead Man, the Grim Ghost, Ghost Patrol, Kid Attorney, Mr. Keeper, Captain Trident, and the Gentleman Ghost. The most pimpinest ghost villain in the history of comics. I love me some Gentleman Jim Craddock. But yeah, that's next time, folks. Overall, again, this is a 4 out of 4 Scooby Snacks out of 5. Just like I said, the Superman issue and the that's really the only thing. I just didn't enjoy them as much as the rest of them. But it by no means drags my enjoyment of the series down to any noticeable degree.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm right there with you. A 4.5 out of 5. And I'm happy that, in the next episode that we'll be doing, in episode 393, where we talk about volumes 3 and 4 of this series, that we will have many different characters and villains and things like that, and very, very cool. Like in volume 4, we end up with Zatanna and Zatara. So that's kind of cool. Again, I love the writing. I love the art. There's not too many things in the art that I don't like. And Sholey Fish writing this, it's like he's basically playing the cartoons in my head kind of thing. Because I remember all those cartoons I used to watch, whether it's Scooby, whether it's the old Batman cartoons, Superman cartoons, whatever it is. Absolutely dig it. Think it's great. I am glad. Go ahead.
I was just saying, just looking at some of the characters they team up with in the next couple of volumes, like Mike mentioned earlier, there's a Doggone Crisis, where you got, looks like Gleek's turned into a dog, and you've got possibly a Martian Manhunter dog looking there, and that is Nort, the Green Lantern dog alien, who is only, and this is actual continuity with the comics, he was only made a Green Lantern because his uncle has a lot of political power in outer space and basically bullied the Guardians of the Galaxy into giving him a Green Lantern ring.
Oh, Lord.
He's kind of an idiot.
So what you're saying is the next few volumes are going to be silly, and that's good.
Well, silly and awesome. And like you said, there's Zatanna. There's an issue where they team up with Hawkman, who's like top 10 all-time favorite comic book characters.
Hawkman and Hawkgirl.
Yeah. And yeah, if there's one thing, it's not that Marvel can't do a team-up title. I mean, they had Marvel 2-in-1 for years, which was, I think that was the Thing. Yeah, that was the Thing teaming up with different Marvel characters every issue. And then there was a Marvel team-up, which was Spider-Man. And both companies can do that, but it's something about DC Comics characters that there is just like that 3% more whimsy with a lot of their characters, especially when you do them in like an animated style or use some of their cartoon forms that lends itself more well to teaming up, which is why I can't wait for the next couple of volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, and this was never meant to be a Marvel bash. Not that you're bashing it. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying, like, I can't, because Scooby is he's Warner Brothers now. But, Hanna-Barbera, that kind of thing. And because originally that was doing all DC stuff way back when with the team-ups and everything else, like, I can't see Scooby teaming up with MODOK or whatever. I know MODOK's not a hero, but you know what I mean. Like, I just can't see.
Now I want nothing in my life but Scooby Doo teaming up with MODOK, appropriately voiced by Patton Oswalt.
There you go. Coming up next inside the pullbag, we're wrapping up 2020 with episode 392. Where Steve Megatron and I talked about Transformers Galaxies issues 5 and 6. This was the wannabe arc where Cliffjumper and Deathsaurus had an adventure. And I just gotta say, folks, and I'll say this when we start up in January with episode I can't talk, 393, when JT and I return for volumes 3 and 4 of Scooby Doo Team Up. 2020 was an interesting year for the pullbag. It was a
dumpster fire. Sorry, 2020, not the pull bag. I want to specify.
You better. You'll never work on this podcast again. But 2020 was interesting because so just to go over the end of 2019 for the show, 374 and 375 were Star Trek Mirror Broken and Star Trek vs. Transformers. November, we had Edge of Spider-Verse and Superman Year 1 number 2 from DC Black Label, which I don't think Joe Reed and I will ever go back and read Superman Year 1 number 3 because Frank Miller had to Frank Miller the hell out of that. Anyway.
Frank Miller gonna Frank Miller.
Yep. In episode 377, Ryan Markley and I, The Uneven Flow, we did Star Wars, the 2015 series, Volumes 1 and Volume 2. There were no episodes of the pullbag from January until April when Steve and I started the Batman Adventures Continue digital series. We need to get back to that at some point. And then we covered Ryan Little's Super Scouts Kickstarter issues in June of this year. And then July we got Galaxies 1 to 4, Constructicons Rising. My buddy Ryan Drost, who's doing a thing, Stealth Hammer, he's doing his own, creator-owned thing, did that. We got a couple new Origins episodes in 2020. I actually got 4 Origins episodes in 2020. Very, very cool. And then we got Harleen, Transformers Volume 1, TMNT. We got back to TMNT, and obviously the episodes you guys have heard this month in December. And next year, it's, now that I have my computer back, the show is back in full upstart, upstanding kind of thing. We've got, hopefully by the end of January, middle of January, we can do Daveocracy with Nicole and myself, so we'll have that going on. Just a ton of stuff going on. What have you got going on in your podcasting adventures?
Well, we're going to, hopefully soon, I can't remember if the episode will have been posted by the time you folks listen to this, but we got our upcoming episodes of the Justice League and our favorite Flash and Green Lantern stories with Mike Dodd on the Twig Sunday Funnies podcast. I really don't know what we're going to be doing the next episode of the Comic Connoisseurs with Ben Carver and Red Ink, because usually we decide about, well, before we record, but not nearly enough time to get a lot of research done, but usually ends up being a pretty fun discussion overall. And I'm just trying to get through, as I said, the dumpster fire of the year of our Lord that is 2020.
Yes. And like I said, we've got a bunch of stuff coming up here inside the pull bag. Check out Geekcast Radio for all the other content. We do have the countdown to episode 400. Episode 400 of the podcast will be 8 years of the pull bag, airing on March 6th of 2021. At some point, I will put out something about sending in voicemails or emails or whatever. Hopefully, people actually still listen to this show. I know at least 3 people do.
Well,
I guess 3 people's enough. Make your great escape into comics, and we will catch you next time here inside the pull bag.
What are you doing here?
Who sent you? You've just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, the GCRN's first comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate and leave a review for the show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Become a fan of us on Facebook, facebook.com/thepullbag. Send us an email, feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at thepullbag and at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.
This is Kevin Conroy, and I am the goddamn Batman.